Someone had been living in our shed for weeks, and none of us had any idea. I was 16 when this happened. We had a decent-sized backyard, big enough that the back corner where the shed sat felt pretty removed from the house. Old wooden shed, maybe 10 by 12 feet. My dad kept tools in there, a lawn mower, the usual garage overflow. Nothing valuable, nothing anyone would want to steal. It had a latch on the door, but no lock. There'd never been a reason for a lock. It started the way my dad described it. He'd go in there to get something, and things weren't quite where he'd left them. Not missing, just moved. A tool on the wrong hook. A box shifted. The kind of thing you notice, but immediately explain away. I must have moved that. I probably just forgot. He didn't say anything to us for a while. I think he was doing the same thing we all do, finding the rational explanation and holding on to it. Then one evening I was coming in from the backyard and I noticed the shed door was open. I was pretty sure it had been closed when I'd been out there earlier, but I wasn't certain. I walked over and shut it, and that's when I saw the water bottle sitting just inside the door. Not one of ours, different brand, different size, just sitting there on the floor next to the door frame. I picked it up and looked at it for a second. Then I put it back down. I don't know why I put it back. I think part of me just didn't want to deal with what it might mean. I went inside and didn't say anything. About 2 weeks after that, I was crossing the backyard toward the shed, and I saw something through the small, dirty window on the side. A shape inside. Dark, low to the ground, like someone curled up. I stopped walking. I stood there in the middle of the yard, heart going, staring at that window. Then I went and got my mom and told her I thought someone was in the shed. We walked out there together. By the time we got to the door, it was latched shut. We opened it. Empty. Just the tools, the lawnmower, the same boxes that had always been there. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. I knew what I'd seen through that window, and my mom could tell I knew. That night I couldn't sleep. I was in my room, which overlooked the backyard, and I kept looking out the window at the shed. Around 2 in the morning, the shed door was open again. My dad got up and checked, came back and said there was nothing there and didn't say much else about it. The next morning I came downstairs and he was outside. When he came back in, he had a padlock in his hand. He went back out and I watched him put it on the shed door without a word. No explanation, no conversation, just the padlock going on. A few days later, he sat down with me quietly, not my mom, just me, and told me what he'd found when he'd done a proper search of the shed. Food wrappers pushed into the corner under a shelf, granola bar wrappers, empty water bottles, a folded piece of cardboard on the floor that looked like it had been used as a bed. Someone had been sleeping in there regularly. We called the police. They came, took a report, said it happens. People looking for somewhere to shelter, somewhere dry and out of the way. They said it was likely someone homeless and probably not dangerous. They said the padlock was the right call. I understood all of that. But here's the thing I couldn't shake then and still can't shake now. For weeks before we found any of this, I had that feeling, that specific low-level, hard-to-name feeling of being watched. I'd be sitting in my room at night with the light on, and I'd look out at the backyard and the shed, and that feeling would just be there. I ignored it every time. Told myself I was being paranoid, but someone was out there, sleeping in our shed, looking up at the light in my window, watching the house for weeks, learning our schedule, knowing when we were home and when we weren't. The police said probably not dangerous, and maybe they were right, but I still don't know what they were waiting for, and I'm not sure I want to. My dog knew someone was in my backyard before I did, and when I finally checked the security footage, he'd been there 11 different nights. Her name was Sadie, German Shepherd mix, about 4 years old when this happened. Calm dog, not anxious, not high-strung, not the type to bark at leaves or raccoons. She'd been around long enough that she knew the difference between something worth reacting to and something that wasn't. Which is exactly why I started paying attention when she stopped wanting to go outside at night. It started subtle, the way these things always do. She'd go to the back door like normal, that little routine dogs have, standing there waiting for you to open it. But then when I'd open it, she'd hesitate, just stand in the doorway a second longer than usual, looking out into the yard. Then she'd go out, come back in fast. Then she started going to the door less. Then she stopped going to the door at all. I thought maybe she was just getting older. Dogs slow down. I told myself 100 small, reasonable things, and I believed all of them. But I started going out with her, just to see. And every single time, she stayed right against my leg, did what she needed to do as fast as she could, and pressed back toward the door. No barking, no growling, no obvious sign of anything wrong. Just that feeling coming off her, that specific animal stillness that means something isn't right. My backyard backed up to a greenbelt, a strip of trees and brush that ran behind several properties on our street. During the day, it was fine. Birds, squirrels, the occasional fox. At night, it was a completely different thing. No lights back there at all. No visibility past the fence. Just a dark tree line about 30 feet out that you couldn't see into no matter how hard you tried. I'd lived there 2 years and never thought much about it. I started thinking about it. Then the motion sensor light started going off. I'd had it for years. Usually went off maybe once or twice a week. A cat, a raccoon, normal stuff. Now it was going off almost every night. Midnight, 1 in the morning, 2. Each time I'd check the window and see nothing. Just the light on, the yard empty, the fence line still. I told myself the sensor was acting up. I almost convinced myself of that. Then one night I was still awake when it came on. I looked out the window. There was a man standing at the fence. Just standing there. In the edge of the light, not moving, not trying to get in, not doing anything at all, just looking at the house, looking directly at the window where I was standing. We stared at each other for maybe 3 seconds. It felt much longer. Then the motion light timed out and shut off. And when it came back on, he was gone. I called the police that night. They walked the greenbelt, checked the fence line, found nothing, told me to call back if it happened again. The next day I installed a camera, pointed directly at the back fence. Motion activated, night vision, footage saved to the cloud, and then I waited. Over the next 2 weeks, I went through the footage every morning. He'd been there 11 times, 11 separate nights, standing in the same spot, sometimes for 2 or 3 minutes, and once for almost 20, just standing at my fence watching the house. There were nights in that footage where every light in my house was off, where I was asleep, where I had absolutely no idea anything was happening outside. And he was still out there, still watching. I took everything to the police. The full 2 weeks of footage, timestamps, all of it. They sat with me and went through it. They told me other people in the area had reported someone similar. Same general description, same behavior. Watching houses from the back, standing at fence lines in the middle of the night without doing anything. Like they were just studying, learning the house, learning the schedule. And then I found out that a house 2 streets over had been broken into, and another one across the greenbelt, both within the same window of time as my footage. I don't know if it was him. I can't prove it. But I know Sadie knew before I did. I know she was trying to tell me something every single time she stopped at that door and looked out into the dark. I moved out 6 months later, and every time I looked at that back fence before I left, I thought about those mornings scrolling through footage, about all those nights he was out there watching my house while I slept inside with no idea. There was a man watching me from the other side of my fence. And the problem was, nobody lived there. I was 23, first time living completely on my own. Small house, small backyard, surrounded on all sides by a 6-foot wooden privacy fence. The whole point of that kind of fence is that you can be out there without feeling exposed. You can sit outside in the evening, have a coffee, read a book, just exist in your own space without anyone seeing you. I liked that. It was one of the reasons I'd picked the place. The first time I saw him, I was outside in the late afternoon, just sitting out there, decompressing after work. And I looked up toward the back fence. He was already there, head and shoulders visible above the fence line, looking directly at me. Not moving, not speaking, not reacting at all to the fact that I'd looked up and made eye contact. Just watching. My brain did what brains do. It immediately tried to make it normal. It's a neighbor. He's just standing in his yard. He probably doesn't even realize I'm out here. I went inside. I told myself it was nothing. 2 weeks later, he was back. Same spot, same stillness, same complete absence of reaction when I looked directly at him. I held eye contact for longer this time, waiting for him to wave or nod or look away. He didn't move. I went inside and knocked on my neighbor's door. She'd been on the street for years and knew everyone. I asked her about the property behind mine. She said it had been empty for months. Nobody living there. I walked around the block the next day and looked at it from the street. For rent sign in the window, no car in the driveway, curtains drawn, no lights inside. Completely vacant. And then I looked at the side of the property that backed up to mine, right up against my fence, and that's when I saw it. A milk crate, sitting there in the dirt, positioned carefully, deliberately, so that someone standing on it would be at exactly the right height to see over my 6-foot fence. That's when my stomach dropped, because a milk crate doesn't end up there by accident. Someone had brought it. Someone had placed it in that specific spot. Someone had thought about the height of my fence and what they'd need to stand on to see over it, and had made a plan. Someone had made a plan to watch me. I called the police. 2 officers came, walked the vacant property, moved the crate, confirmed no one was inside the house. Nothing criminal had technically occurred. They took a report and left. A week later, he was back, and the crate was back in the exact same spot. That was the moment I understood this wasn't random. This wasn't someone walking past and being nosy. He was coming back specifically. He knew about the vacant property, knew about the fence, had placed that crate intentionally, and kept returning after it was removed. He wanted to watch me. That was the whole point. I broke my lease 2 weeks later, paid the penalty, lost the deposit, didn't care. I packed up and left, and I did not look back. I never found out who he was. Nobody was ever identified. The property got a new tenant eventually, and as far as I know, nothing else happened there. But I think about it every time I'm in a backyard now. I think about all the times I was outside at that house, relaxed, not paying attention, thinking I was completely alone and private behind that fence, and about how long someone had been standing on a milk crate on the other side, watching me before I ever noticed. If these stories got to you, let me know in the comments. And if something has ever happened around your home, something that didn't feel right, share it below. I read every single one.